Welcome, if you haven't been formally welcomed yet, to the summer of getting a center. I deemed this for the Carolina Hurricanes a couple of weeks ago now. The summer of getting a center. There's been too many years consecutively where you feel like you've had it all or you're all but maybe a goalie and a center. Second-line center. Need a second-line center. Nate just wants to be the second-line center. Kotkaniemi was supposed to be the second-line center. Where's the second-line center? Second-line center, second-line center. Oh, how I lament that Trocheck was supposed to be the second-line center. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Maybe not with the word lament. That's my own twist there. Usually it's words I can't say on radio when fans tell me about the second-line center on the Canes. When it's a rotation between Roslovic, Jankowski, and Kotkaniemi in the postseason, yeah, flowery language, the kind you can't say on radio. So I declared it with your cap space, with your trade capital, your draft picks, your prospects, with most of your core locked up to very team-friendly deals. I said, there's no excuse this offseason. It's the summer of getting a center. Maybe I failed to add on is that it's going to be really hard to get a center. Should have prepared you for that, right? I brought you on a hike. Like, let's go hiking this weekend. I didn't tell you how long the loop was, right? I just hey, let's go. Get you 6 miles away before I tell you, oh yeah, and it's uphill on the way back. It's gonna be a hard thing to do. The way I've been describing it is, you are either going to be happy with the player, and I'm talking about from the fans' perspective. You're either going to be happy with the player they bring in at center and not happy with the price they paid for the player, or you'll be happy for the price they paid and not happy with the player. That's the way you look at it, right? There's no super stud, right-handed, 6'4", 220, physical, goal-scoring, playoff-proven center out there that is going to join your team for $6.5 million on a 7-year contract, who's in their 20s. It doesn't exist. And then you enter into like the market equilibriums, and I wade into the deep waters on this way too often. I took a couple economics classes in college, but you get into supply and demand. And this particular offseason, there's not a ton of centers. Not like there are many off seasons where they're growing on trees, but there's not a ton. So you have to pick your poison. Okay, there's a world where you bring in your second line center, and you go, oh great, that didn't cost that much. We can still go get a stud, maybe former all-star on the wing, and a super established, super trustworthy right-handed defenseman to skate with Slavin. And I'll go, yeah, but that second line center is kind of underwhelming, right? Or you can come back and go, look at this. I'm never going to complain about second line center again. We got everything we're looking for. And then I'm going to go, yeah, you might have to pinch pennies a little bit on your right-hand defenseman. Or something like, yeah, well, now you don't have the trade capital if you want to make a similar big move in the future. Right, next offseason, if again, there's not a strong free agency goalie class and you want to go make that trade, you might not have the pieces because you gave them all up for this center. There's no perfect situation out there. So I brought up a handful of potential options right here, starting with the one that's being talked about the most right now. I've been telling you all offseason, 48-hour segments where different players become the hot thing to talk about. Right now, we are nearing hour 38 of Tomas Hertl, where for 24 hours it was, oh, it needs to happen. It's happening. I'm hearing smoke. It could happen. Here's what the need to. Here's why. Here's the. Then it calms down a little bit. People are still talking about it, but we're still in his mix, okay? He'll be 32 in November, coming from Vegas if the trade happens. 5 years remaining with $6.75 million on a cap hit because San Jose is eating some of that. But you take him up to like, I don't know, age 36, 37, something like that. 6'3", 220. Slow, if we're being real. I always use my high school football coach's insult. If we had a guy, usually maybe a fullback, break into the open field, he would just go, "We don't judge your speed with a stopwatch. We judge it with a calendar. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday," as he was trying to pull away in the open field. Hurdle, maybe it's not days on the calendar, but it's like hours, 1 p.m., 2 p.m. as he breaks into the opening. What about somebody like Minnesota's Marco Rossi, 24, restricted free agent, contract impasse with the Wild, 24 goals. Reportedly asking, according to The Athletic, for a deal similar to his teammate Matt Boldy, which would be about 7 years, just under $50 million. But he's 5'9", 182. What about somebody like John Tavares? 38-goal, 74-point season.
And apparently the contract negotiations with him in Toronto are not going great.
And he's 34, which is a little older than you might like. And if you look at his skill set, the brind'amour aggressive forechecking, not what he's exactly known for. But, 16 years in the league, there's some provenness there. What about Vancouver's Elias Pettersson? Right, first of all, he and the Canes, they've been flirting with each other, batting eyes from across the bar for quite some time. He is 6'2", but he is 176, so he's built like a string bean. 26 years old, though. 26. Superstar potential. 100-point season on his resume. 100 points. Something that hasn't happened not only in recent history, hasn't happened much in Canes history since they moved from Hartford. You're looking at Jordan Stahl's brother.
Yeah.
There you go.
Eric Stahl in 2006 was the last 100-point season.
There you go. But that's going to be a blockbuster, right? And he has a contract that's $11.6 million annually. So, yeah, right? And you'd have to pay a lot in the trade, right? Again, The Athletic notes that they will likely be looking for something similar to what the Sabres received for Jack Eichel, which that's two players, at least one young and exciting, and a first-round pick.
But those two players, to me anyway, those two players are not comparable.
They are not at all, but the market is different.
That's true.
There's not a lot of other options, right? So the question is, do you go overpay for somebody like Pettersson, but you're excited about Pettersson? Or do you reasonably acquire Tomas Hertl and you're not really excited about adding us Jordan Stahl and Hertl as your second and third line centers, not exactly the Showtime Lakers out there getting up and down.
Speak for yourself. When I saw word of this going on yesterday, I was pretty excited because, for one, with the retained salary by San Jose, you're only paying him
$675.
Yeah, $675. Granted, it's a few more years, but he's given solid second line contribution pretty much every year of his career. I mean, he started as a 20-year-old. He had 25 points in 37 games, and ever since then, I mean, he's been a solid. I think he's got 3 or 4 30-goal seasons, which, by the way, is more than Mitch Marner has. And that's just he's a solid veteran, can score the puck.
He had six more years to get him.
5 more years, I think.
32 versus 20, what is it, Marner, 27?
Yeah, or
okay,
28, I believe.
So 4 more years.
But I like that. I mean, the value is there. Good player, 32 goals last season.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. It's if you go that route, you're getting solid, which is what you said, right? Solid second line center. You're not getting exciting, right? You're not going. No offense, you're not selling Hertl jerseys, right? You're not. That's not what your exciting offseason with all the cap space and everything would lead to at a position that's been annoying for a long time. And by the way, the Hertl, Pettersson, I don't want to turn this into two guys, right? Like those people. I'm almost using them as examples of their category, right? Where you can go find the 32, the 33, the 34-year-old, the guy who is big but he's slow, and you can get him for a little bit cheaper, right? Where, hey, he's got some 30-goal seasons, but he doesn't have the 100-point season, right? He's got some 30-goal seasons, doesn't have the 45-goal season, or some 30-goal season, doesn't have the 45-goal season. Or you could spend more, granted, sometimes a lot more, but then you do get the excitement, right? Then you do get the possibilities of something greater. Then you do get the possibilities of what the heck do you do with the Canes when they're throwing Aho at you on the first line, flanked by Mitch Marner and Seth Jarvis, or whoever you want, like whatever you spend the rest of your money on. And then you come in the second line and you have the category of Elias Pettersson and Svech and whoever else you want to throw up there. There's a very, very interesting dichotomy there. Neither is easy. Neither is exactly what you drew up. Right? For those of you yelling about it, yes, like the Pettersson, the level would, I think Tage Thompson would be in that level, and there's a few others that would be in that level. But then, with his contract being a bit more gettable as far as cap hit, you're probably going to have to give up even more in a trade.
Oh, yeah. You'd have to give up a ransom to get Tage Thompson off the Sabres.
Which you're going to go love the player, hate the price, which that's the category he falls into.
One of the benefits of Pettersson, too, is they've been interested in Kotkaniemi in previous trade talks as well, so you'd be able to move that cap hit out as well. However many years left that is, I believe it's 4 or 5. So really you're only net adding like 7 or 8 million for every year that KK's contract would be here. Instead, you'd have Pettersson, who is a more productive player, if we're being honest. So
if they take Pettersson, yes, I'm there. I mean, sorry, if they take Kotkaniemi, yes, I'm there. That's a different conversation. My point is this, and I disagree with some smart people on this. I'll pay the price. I'll pay more for the second line center of my dreams, and it's for a few reasons. One, it's because they have it, right? This isn't an off season where it's not a possibility. You have the capital. Two, I don't want to fall into the trap of, I was just recently, and shout out to Bailey's Fine Jewelry and the Fox and Bailey Watch Shop. I have a relationship with them, but I was just recently, not because of his music, but you can, not to disrespect his music, great guitarist, shout out to Grateful Dead. I was listening to a watch podcast with John Mayer, and one of his regrets was there was a watch that was stupid expensive, right? And by the way, he's moving in watch circles that most of us will never move in. You're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars. There was a watch that was stupid expensive, but it was one that he was drawn to. He loved it, the look, the everything. And he went, oh, that's so much money. I can't do it. That doesn't make any sense. And then he's like, over the next month, I bought 4 watches that were a quarter as expensive, and I didn't like any of them nearly as much as I would have liked the big piece. And I think that is how the Canes should think, in that if you like the crown jewel, buy the crown jewel. Only the difference is John Mayer was kind of operating, I guess, with a budget, right? And he didn't want to blow his whole budget on one watch, so he spent it on 4. The Canes, their budget spend is obviously capped, but the value you get out of those other spots is not. And part of what the genius of Rod Brind'amour and his system is he takes fourth liners and they play like third liners, right? He takes healthy extras and he turns them into legit, I want him on the ice every day fourth liners. Mark Jankowski, I don't believe they traded for him over the 5th round pick at the deadline with the idea of him being an everyday player. It was size and it was organizational depth if they needed it. And then by the end of the season, it was like, you can't take Janky off the ice. The guy's playing great. So spend the money on the guys that you have things you can't teach. Right, the things that are the skill that's given by whoever made you, and then trust Rod Brind'amour to bring up everything else rather than going, ooh, I don't know, I want to spend a little bit here, a little bit there to make sure we have talents. I'm going like, nah, he'll figure that out. He'll find talent there, and Tulsky will help obviously with roster management. But the Eric Robinson of it all, if he can turn Eric Robinson into a player you're comfortable every single time out there with, you only need to save $1.7 million to pay Eric Robinson over the next 4 years.
Right.
So go get Pettersson or Tage Thompson or whoever that is where I'm leaning.
I'll say, I wouldn't be surprised necessarily if they don't spend to the cap just because they have all that space, but also maintaining that flexibility, 1, for the deadline, and 2, for the free agency class next year, which is, for now, it's loaded. I don't know how many of those guys will re-sign before then, but I think they're going to add a lot of big pieces, but
I agree.
Don't color me surprised if they don't spend super close to the cap. Like if they leave maybe anywhere from like 5 to 10 million. I wouldn't be shocked.
Couldn't agree more. And then that gives you space to bring on a rental if you want to for the rest of the year. And then obviously with that rental coming off the books or you choosing to re-sign, that money obviously will be there for the big free agency class as well. But here's the thing. They could have $8 million not used and still spend $19 over the next month or two. Like, that's how much they can shop top shelf.